Hello and welcome again to my channel, Garden Well, Eat Well. You know, there's one herb that I make sure I grow every single season. It's cilantro. We love it. It has such a refreshing flavor and always adds a great taste to many of our recipes, soups and salads, and especially in salsa. I'm sure you have your own favorites too. Most gardeners enjoy growing this herb, usually with the goal of just using the leaves. But after the plant goes to seed, we can collect those and use them as a spice as well. The fresh leaves and the dried seeds have different flavors and have different uses in cooking, so you really can't swap one for the other. Now, here in Canada, and most of North America, again, we call the plant cilantro, and just the dried seeds is coriander. And this is where many people get confused because most of the world doesn't even use the word cilantro at all. Instead, they refer to the whole plant as coriander and ask for coriander seeds when they just want the spice. So when you're working through a recipe, and if all they mention is the term coriander, you really should read closely to see if they mean the leaves or the seeds. It'll all depend on which country the recipe came from, so it can get kind of confusing. But whatever the case, if you're growing any herbs in your garden, this is probably one that makes your list. And if not, you really need to give it a try. It grows best in cool weather, so it's a good one to plant in the early spring and also in the fall. It's very easy to start growing. In fact, if you grew it last year, then you're pretty well guaranteed to have another crop this year without even trying. It self-seeds so easily. Luckily though, since the seeds are so large, they don't blow around your whole garden like other herbs can. If you've ever grown chamomile or dill, then you know exactly what I mean. Those can end up growing like weeds everywhere. Although it's an easy plant to start, one major drawback with cilantro is that it absolutely hates hot weather. It's so difficult to keep it growing lush and full all summer long. Usually what happens, it'll be growing so well in the spring. Then we'll have a period of hot, dry weather, and it's that hot spell that triggers a plant to switch over to its bolting stage. And at that point, it starts preparing to make seed. You know when it's starting to bolt when it begins to switch from a thick and lush compact plant to one that is tall and gangly. Even the leaves start to change. The new ones that form are no longer large and full. They now start to get very sparse and spindly. They still have that same flavor we want, but it's difficult now to pick enough to even make it worthwhile. There's just nothing to them anymore. At this point, many gardeners will decide to just dig them up and toss them on the compost pile. And I understand, but I'm telling you, don't do that. The plant can still provide us tons of flavor. We actually love using it when it reaches this stage, because if you let the plant continue to bolt, it'll start to produce loads of delicate, small white flowers. And soon, these will lead to hundreds of green berries on every plant. These are what we're waiting for. Now later in the season, the berries will mature and dry on the stems. These will become the coriander seeds, the spice. But before that happens, before they turn brown, we can pick those berries green and use them in the kitchen. And this is the big point I want to make in this video, because I don't want you to miss out on how to use this plant to its fullest. The berries have that same leaf flavor, and I think it's even more concentrated. In fact, for some recipes, we like using it instead of the leaves, as the flavor is much more intense and isn't lost as much when you cook it. To prepare them, you can use a mortar and pestle to turn them into a paste. Throw the berries in and start grinding. It really only takes a few seconds. And this method is great if you want to do a lot of them. Or you can crush them and mince them with a knife. We'll add this to whatever we're cooking, a soup, a stew, but with some recipes, we love adding the whole berries themselves. When you bite into them, you get a rush of that fresh flavor. And since they are immature seeds and their cores haven't fully developed, You can eat them without worrying about biting into anything hard, they're still very tender. This isn't true once they dry and turn brown. The seeds just get too hard to chew at that point. Even using a mortar and pestle to try to grind them just produces a lot of husk and hard bits that would probably just ruin the meal. So once your plants have bolted, you may have to resort to whatever fresh cuttings you still have left in the kitchen. Now we've all tried to keep freshly picked cilantro and have it end up rotting on us within a week. Sometimes not even that long. Whether you store it in a bag or a container in the fridge, or let it sit in water, the leaves just never seem to last. But another huge benefit with these berries is that you can keep them in the fridge and have that fresh taste available for quite a while. I simply wash them, put them in a sealed container, and cover them with olive oil to keep them from drying out. It will keep in the fridge for weeks, much longer than the leaves would ever last. I like using olive oil because of its taste, but it will also absorb any flavor that is given off by the berries. Then, when I want to use them, I just take a spoon to add what I want, and then put the jar back in the fridge. If you do use olive oil, just remember that it can solidify when it's chilled. The berries can get covered by a cloudy haze. But once you take the jar out of the fridge and allow it to warm up a bit, the oil will turn back into a liquid. If you want to use an oil that doesn't solidify when it's cold, you could use canola or sunflower oil instead. Now, if you see that you have a lot of berries on the plants and you don't want them all to mature into coriander seeds, I'd recommend harvesting as many as you can while they're still green. Add the oil, but store them in the freezer so you can enjoy their taste all winter long. Oh, and just a few last points. You may not realize it, but the entire plant is edible. Everything from the flowers down to even the root itself. And it all has that same flavor as the leaves, to different degrees. So once it's bolted, if you've already picked all the sparse leaves you can and the berries haven't quite formed yet, by all means start using some of the flowers. They have a ton of flavor as well. And finally, at the end of the season, the entire plant will turn brown. The seeds will be almost dry and probably some have already begun falling off. Before they all spread on the ground, make sure to carefully pick the entire plant and let it finish drying out in your garage or shed. You'll be able to use all those seeds as a spice in the kitchen, as well as for planting your crop next season. I hope you've enjoyed this video and learned a lot on how to get the most out of this fantastic plant. And if you want to see more great content, please consider subscribing and checking out my other YouTube videos. Thanks for watching, and when you garden well, you'll always eat well.